I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled board meeting of USD 464 for Monday, December 13th. At this time, if you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alright. We have everyone here, and Justin's on the phone with us, so with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand. Justin, you can say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. With that, we'll move into the presentations. First up, I've got Aaron.
Give the high school bond project update. So things are going along really well out there. Project received substantial completion on November 30th, and currently furniture and all the other equipment and finished items are going in, getting ready for the move later this month. So the overall project budget status, holding tight with our GMP and contingencies with the overall $51.4 million bond funds. Got a summary of the contingency line items, their current values, and some forecasted. You'll see in the district GMP contingency line item, forecasting about $45,000 and a few outstanding things that have come up towards the completion of the project. An additional sidewalk for access from the parking lot, and some additional grading and landscape work out in front of the school along the highway, just to clean up once all the grading and site work was put in. So those are forthcoming and forecasted there. Otherwise, in pretty good shape. The full contingency log is attached, and I'll go through those percentages here in a minute. Schedule-wise, as I mentioned, the actual final substantial completion date for the Learning Center was dated on November 30th. Still completing some punch list items that the contractor's doing, as well as some of the district's vendors with the AV and low voltage work. Weather days, obviously with all the interior, mostly interior work, little site work, there was one weather day used the month of November. Overall, there were 6 weather days used in the construction of the Learning Center project, which will now essentially zero out and won't carry over contractually into the next phase. So really no key deliverables or inspections to report this month, other than the completion that was really done at the end of November. Other key milestone dates that are upcoming, really focused around the move and kind of preparing the final activities for the start of the athletic center. So the physical move will start on December 20th. McCown Gordon will be relocating their job trailer from its current location up on the highway. It'll go back behind the new gym area back by the shed, and they'll set up there, as well as putting up the new construction fence around that whole east side of the building area for the athletics edition. Demolition and make safe disconnects for the East Campus will begin on the 23rd. The site fencing will go up on the 27th, and abatement of the East Campus building will also begin on the 27th. So the physical demolition of the building is scheduled to begin around November 11th after all the abatement and disconnections and shoring is put in place prior to the demolition process.
You mean January 11th?
Sorry, January 11th, yes. And after the abatement's done in the East Campus building, they will flip over and begin the abatement on West Campus on January 4th. And then there will be just the site work and clearing and demo will continue through March when they will start actual footings and foundations for the new athletics edition. Some site work going on in the spring, and precast will begin at the beginning of June. Safety-wise, McCown Gordon still continues to do a great job out on site, really safe work, and no accidents have been reported. Some other key changes and issues that we're kind of going through on site, really focused around this switch between the phases. The East Campus and West Campus moved to the Learning Center. The actual library move began today, starting to load up books and move them over to the new library. The new shelving is in, and they'll start placing that. The full move will begin on the 20th through the 22nd. And then on the 23rd will be the open house for nonprofits and others in the public to come through and look at the furniture and items that are not being reused in the new building. So the athletics edition, I touched on that schedule a little bit. The upcoming abatement, we have a pre-abatement meeting with that contractor tomorrow out on site. I attached in the board docs a revised site access plan that's been developed with the administration and shared. When the students come back in January, there will be a new pattern and parking plan, which includes blocking off the whole east side and the access road from Main Street. And other Learning Center FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Furniture began to arrive on December 1st and is being distributed throughout the space. They're starting to assemble that. There's some photos in the documents and starting to come together there. Starting to identify a few pieces of furniture that need to be added or modified as the space is getting in and seeing how everything fits together. There was a day 2 fund established in the furniture budget, so we'll be starting to track that. We should have all the furniture. There is one fabric that is back ordered, so there's a few pieces that won't arrive until later in January, but they're not key components of the educational classroom spaces. They're kind of extra couches and chairs. AV and intercom work continues with the TV and projector installation, and we'll be doing owner training on that later this month as well. The athletics and West Campus furniture. So we received final furniture design and selections for both of those spaces. That was included in the board docs. We're making a few minor adjustments, but overall both packages are within the previously established budget and actually came in about $20,000 under budget. So did a really good job of managing that with all the changes and price increases over the last couple of years. So the plan is to finalize a couple adjustments to that and execute that order with Scott Rice in January so they can get specifically the West Campus furniture on order. We have a little bit more time for the athletics. Owner training, we've worked through a big training log, identifying all the items that training needs to be provided on. Worked with the staff and the subcontractors, put together a schedule. So that started, that will be starting this week and really kind of continues through the end of the year, getting all the mechanical components trained and just miscellaneous new items.
That's going to be, is that recorded?
It is recorded, yeah, the major ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Project design enhancements, nothing specific this month. We did talk last month about some ongoing conversations with the CTE classrooms, potential renovations, proposals, and new furniture for those. So still working through some furniture proposals with Scott Rice to present that to the board. Any questions on those? So as I mentioned, the change order summary is attached, and the overall percentage of the contingencies used is listed down below. So still well under the percentage of used contingencies as compared to the completion percentage of the overall project. So we continue to track those every month and keep an eye on it. Then I also included the site logistics plan that I mentioned earlier. This whole area in red will be the new fenced construction area with construction traffic coming off of Main Street on the east into that area to keep the traffic separated. McCown Gordon is going to attend the board meeting in January, and they will have a full, if you recall, earlier in the project, they did a animated site logistics plan. So they have updated that and we'll be sharing that at the January board meeting. That'll explain a little bit more on what to expect with this next phase and when everything will be happening with that. And then just a few photos of things out on site. You can see, got some of the classroom, yeah.
Do you recall off the top of your head the student parking spots and staff parking spots compared to where we're at today before we do the fence move?
Where'd Mark go?
Mark here, I think.
Yeah, I don't recall off the top of my
It's-
head. We've spent a lot of time talking about it and counting. Ben Killingsworth with McCown's been out there counting individual spots.
And it's equal to, or?
It's going to be really tight for this phase.
Oh, okay.
In terms of how many spots are needed. You can see on here the 170.
I would say, Drew, it's equal to, it's just getting everybody to maximize the parking.
Stick between the lines.
Yeah.
And some of that's gonna be with
Yeah.
the staff parking in the rear, I mean.
There's a lot of big trucks out there.
So,
Yeah. And so what we've talked about, there's this gravel area down to the south here that was put in as part of this phase, and that's being left there. So if there are special events or reasons for some overflow, that's accessible through the rolled curb that was put in that parking lot.
Okay.
So,
and that's pretty good parking, actually.
And there's no gates, or, because I think ultimately when it's done, there'll be some sliding gates or something like that there, but those
Yeah.
aren't in now.
this one on this site is in,
Okay.
but it will be left open.
Okay.
So this parking back here is still accessible.
Right.
And then, yes, after the next phase, there'll be a second gate on this side, and this will be restricted access for staff and deliveries.
Okay.
So yeah, it'll be a little different getting used to, but honestly should flow a little bit better than the way it currently is right now, just because this section is a little more clear in and out.
So the fence construction area, what's the extent as you get closer to Main Street? Where does that stop from there? I mean, does it go down closer to the to the field house, or where does?
They probably won't, they're not gonna fence off that whole road. They will when they actually tear that road out and put the new road in.
Okay.
But for this construction area, it'll be generally kind of where the screen cuts off.
Okay.
Give them enough lay down room and mostly stay off the practice field.
Okay.
But they will be using, that road down to that side will be limited to construction traffic and not any school traffic.
So it'll have the signs and everything,
Yeah.
because everybody's going to be.
Yeah,
I saw some good emails about directions and stuff, but not everybody
yeah,
reads the emails.
yeah. It'll, and just like when we switched over here a few months ago,
Yeah.
it'll take a little bit of practice, and Mark will stand out there in the morning with his, his banner waving.
Okay.
But yeah, so like I said, McCown will be here in January, and they'll have their 3D animated model that will give a little bit more detail to this.
Okay.
So that, yeah, that's all I have on that. We're talking about HVAC now, or doing that in action?
I was doing that.
Doing it now?
Can I ask a question with the furniture?
Yeah.
Is the furniture all, like it's set in stone, ordered, done, and you're just showing it to us, or are you showing it to us so we can have input?
If you have input, that would be great. You're talking about the athletics and West Campus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just don't understand. The chair that has the black back and the red and gold fabric and then the gold legs, I don't get that chair. Like, I don't get how it fits in with everything.
Bar height one.
I'm trying to get there.
No, it's all over. It's
West
in
Campus or the athletics?
West Campus.
Um,
And then I also, that one and then the other one that doesn't make sense to me where it's placed, because it's a brick wall that it sits up against. It's just not very inviting. It's the one in the lobby, the couch.
mm-hmm.
So you have the brick wall and then you have the square fabric. Like you have a rectangle and a square.
Are you looking at the?
Fabrics.
Alright, West Campus.
West Campus. It's on
The
the,
proposal that had the cut sheets of the equipment and the renderings?
Yeah, this one.
it's the middle attachment.
Yeah, that one.
This one? Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Um,
I just feel like there has to be, in my opinion, if it was in there so we would add input, which I'm assuming, I don't know.
yeah.
I'm giving my input whether you like it or not. How's that?
Okay.
So I think that fabric does not, like, it's not, it doesn't warm the space. It's not like you're putting squares and rectangles. I don't know. I just don't, like, I don't get that. And then I also don't, like, this chair, like when you look at these rooms together, I don't, like, there's nothing else to tie in the gold and the red. There's just, right? I mean, maybe you
Yeah.
can explain the whole design behind that, but
The-
I kind of know, oh, go ahead.
Oh, so these chairs are the same chair and fabric that's being used in the Learning Center, and some of the guest chairs in the admin area. And so the admin section of this, a lot of the finishes were just to match or be similar to those, so they could be kind of interchangeable if things changed in the future.
Which that makes sense to me. It's just
Yeah.
that, like, when I'm looking at the space, so there's, like, I mean, it's gray, black, and then there's, like, two
Yeah.
red seats with gold bot bases,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah, and I think the red was just to, continue to put the red colors into each room, but the gold legs could be black. I mean, that's easy. This isn't set in stone yet.
well, if the other ones, so
Or
I don't
silver.
remember what the other ones look like in the other, like on,
These are the exact same chair fabric finishes, everything that are in the learning center admin area for their guest chairs.
So I haven't toured it yet. So
Yeah.
what ties that together in those spaces? Are there other?
Just the reds and the golds of the Tonganoxie colors.
Like the walls are, I mean, do you know,
Yeah.
you know what I'm trying to get at? Like, are there other things were those chairs picked for the learning center because there were other components of that whole package that they tied in together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was all done as that complete furniture finish package meeting that we had when we were doing that learning center. And then the decision was just made to use the same chairs over here in these admin spaces so they could be interchangeable and easily mixed. And still sticking with your Tonganoxie colors. So just keeping all the reds and blacks and simple finishes. The only thing that are different is the actual color of some of the admin offices here. The superintendent, assistant superintendent are just a darker wood finish, whereas the other offices are sticking with this lighter gray.
I mean, none of this order has been placed yet, so
Correct.
someone could look at it and provide some feedback for
Yeah.
the order.
Yeah, I think if there's a consensus, I mean, if it seems better to have, black legs or something on those chairs.
I'll defer to Kaya and Stephanie.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say.
Well, I mean, I like the idea of keeping it consistent with the other, like that makes sense to me. I just don't understand.
That's really, honestly, Kai, that was pretty much the whole purpose, was not to reinvent the wheel and try to do something totally different, and really try and keep some consistency. So if something has to be replaced or fixed or repaired, that it's really simple and easy to know what to do. So,
Yeah.
and from a price point perspective, that style of chair, that type of chair is, we know what it costs, and it's a reasonably priced chair for that application.
And on the picture on page 12, where it's the boardroom and AV room, the color of the table, that doesn't match up with any of the colors on the bottom.
This one?
It says page 12, but then on the bottom it says page 14, so I don't know which one.
15th of the people presentation.
That one. So is that goldish color is supposed to be one of these laminates?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the gold in this picture, it's the laminate down here. It's the way it renders.
Okay.
So, yeah. It's the Wilson Art Kenningston Maple boardroom table.
Okay.
It just, it looks really gold in the picture, but
Yeah,
it's not.
I didn't know what that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a light maple finish.
Okay.
Will those chairs for the seating match the chairs with the red and the gold? Or
No, these are a stack chair,
Oh, okay.
so they can be stacked and move out of the way. They're
Easily stored.
easily stored. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're all plastic.
Boardroom be used for other meetings, or is it just the board meeting?
It could be, but we also have that Harold's old room for professional development, and it's gonna be a very nice room.
Because I was gonna say, maybe you need tables to go in that room potentially if you're gonna use it for.
If we need them, we can move them from Harold's room in. We kept all those. I don't know if we will though, with that nice room that we're gonna be using for PD.
Yeah.
Any other questions? We've got some other presentations. Or you got the,
So yeah, I mean, I guess specific direction on these chairs. So they're also in the board meeting room.
Well, I would suggest, on Wednesday night, we're gonna take a tour. Just come and look at them.
I think they're there.
The chairs I saw today in the administrative offices were very nice.
Okay,
With
then
the red-
that
with
would
the
be
red-
these. Yeah.
So, anyway, just
you be
take a
able-
look.
Will you be able to make that, Kaya?
Wednesday? Yep.
Okay. Yeah, if you see those and you guys have specific
Yeah.
feedback, again, we're gonna finalize this order until after the first of the year to put it on order. So if, it's changing a finish color or something, that's really easy to communicate back and make that change.
Yeah, say let Lauren know, or and the team can work through that or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. HVAC. So this has been a topic, you wanna come up, Mitch? So this has been mentioned over the past few months that one of the high priorities for the staff and Mitch and his team is exploring the opportunity to replace the aging HVAC equipment on the high school specifically. There's 8 units on the gym and a TPAC. So up on the screen here, and I'll try and zoom in a little bit, I kind of just put together some bullet points we'll talk through and let Mitch kind of give a little bit more input on the background of this. But there's 8 existing units serving the gym and TPAC that are nearing the end of their useful life. The cost to maintain and repair the units to keep them operational has continued to increase. Just a couple of examples. RTU 5 is currently not operational, and Mitch and his team have received quotes of approximately $30,000 to get that up and running, and about $30,000 was spent on RTU 4 prior to this school year to get it up and running. Mitch, you want to have another?
Yeah, so like RTU 5, for example, is one of the large units that heats and cools the gym. So we have 2 large ones, 6 and 5. 6 is operational right now and doing the job, which is why we haven't addressed that. And then like RTU 4 controls the band room and that kind of hallway. And that issue popped up about August. And with students moving in there, we obviously had to address it. But the price tags for a lot of what we're seeing now is compressor failure and VFD failure, which is, we're talking $4,000 to $5,000 in parts. And then a lot of the quotes that we got to repair this were, kind of not to exceed sort of things, because they didn't necessarily know if fixing one thing was going to fix the next thing, and just a lot of hesitation into what we want to do. And the biggest thing with all these units is they heat and cool very large spaces. So we're talking gym, TPAC, all the hallways with the high ceilings outside of there, and just the capacity to do that over their 16-year life cycle has kind of led us down this road where we think this is the best way to go for the district, to try to kind of put all this on with what's currently happening on the new building. So,
All these units are the same age?
yeah, these are all part of the 2005 TPAC edition.
Okay.
So with that, at the board's direction a few months ago, we worked together to put together an RFP for replacement, a turnkey solution replacement of these units, basically replacing like for like. Requested that the bids include all mechanical, electrical, and plumbing components of the project. So it really is one person comes in, takes care of everything that has to do with replacing those units. So it was sent out to 3 pre-selected firms based on their current experience and knowledge of the high school building and those units. So both Train and P1 that have been involved throughout the years, as well as McCown Gordon and their current subcontractor, KC Mechanical, who's doing all the new construction work. McCown and KC Mechanical declined to bid. They didn't believe that they could be competitive just based on the scope and it being mainly RTU mechanical work that is, by the time they price it out, could not be competitive. So bids from P1 and Train were received. Mitch and I and Lauren went through those. Mitch met both P1 and Train on site, did thorough walkthroughs of the site conditions, looked at the units, discussed the scope. We sent some follow-up questions to both bidders, just ensuring that they had the same scope of work and clarifying a few questions related to unit weights and structural capacities and electrical capacities for the new proposed units. P1 originally submitted on Aon equipment, which Mitch requested a revised quote to match the same Train equipment that Train was bidding. So that did bring their price down a little bit, but still came back about 30% higher than the Train quote. The only other difference in their scope was that P1 was planning to purchase and install new screens for the units, where Train feels confident and has confirmed that they are able to reuse the existing screens and reattach them to the new units. So based on that, the recommendations that the staff is bringing to the board is for approval of the Train turnkey proposal for $791,033 to replace 8 existing rooftop units. Requesting immediate execution of that proposal, there is a price increase in early January that would add $35,000 to that cost, as well as increasing lead times for rooftop units. I think right now their quote said they're running about 14 to 16 weeks. So the plan would be to get those ordered and have them ready to install this summer. The recommendation is for the board to approve use of the bond project enhancement contingency funds up to $850,000, which would allow for some allowances, potentially for roof patching as a result of the work, and touch-up painting on these screens if necessary once they're reinstalled, as well as some contingency for potential unforeseen conditions. So going back to the contingency log, just to kind of wrap this up and then let you guys ask questions. The contingency fund that we're talking about here from the bond project was this original facility improvement allowance that was the leftover from the advantageous bids that were received at the time of GMP. So with the previous usages of that current value sits at $3,655,000. So the proposal is to have the board approve using $850,000 of that to go towards this project. Questions?
And this is action item 5.2, so I mean, if you want to ask questions now, then we can vote on it here later at the meeting, but anyway, since we have Aaron and Mitch.
So it sounds to me like 16 years is about the expected lifetime on these units. Is there anything that we're specifying here that might extend that life, or is it any features or quality things that?
I think we're pretty much going with what's currently going on in the new building or what's already been installed on the new building. I don't think we're doing anything out of the ordinary from that. So I think the expected life on the new building would be 15 to 20 years based on just equipment being a little better now manufactured than it was 15, 16 years ago. But most of our mechanical recommendations are saying that 15 to 18 years is about the life cycle of these. And so we're trying to match apples to apples what's going on there right now with similar units.
So it's safe to say that by doing this now, then we'll probably 15 to 18 years from now be doing the new building and this again.
Yeah, so, and that's kind of where we're at too, because Tonganoxie Middle School is on the same life cycle right now with their units are roughly, now they're in a little better condition than the high schools for a couple reasons, but yeah, I mean, I think the plan is to try to make sure that we have a 15 to 20 year plan to not have to do this building, the middle school, the elementary school at some point in time is going to come up all at once, and I think this sets us off for 18 years on the high school, and then we can use that time to address the other buildings. Now, yeah, in 18, 20 years, that'd be a pretty big project. The hope would be that we wouldn't have to do it all at once, but that certainly is the potential for that.
So I assume KC Mechanical's the contractor doing the work currently?
Case Mechanical, yeah, on the bond project.
Do we have a written refusal from them
Not
to
really.
bid?
No, they didn't. I talked to McCown Gordon about it, but no, they didn't send us anything in writing. And just kind of the detail on that, KC Mechanical is more of a plumbing subcontractor, and actually in the high school they have subcontracted out the sheet metal work. So they would, on this project, all they would be doing is the very minimal plumbing work, and then they would sub out the sheet metal work. And so by the time, they mark that up, whereas Train and P1 do that in-house and don't have that subcontractor markup.
So we don't know what the unforeseen conditions is. So that's why we're asking to approve more than what the bid is.
Well, yeah.
I would love that kind of work.
No, not to give it to Train, just as a contingency allowance for the district. Just if something came up in the course of doing this work.
On a time and material basis.
Yeah, and they had to do something extra that we wouldn't have to come back to the board to ask for additional fund usage. Not that the Train's proposal would still be what they bid. It's just if something came up, that could be
No,
clearly
right,
addressed.
right, I understand.
Yeah.
Justin, any questions?
No, I'm trying to follow along. I don't have.
No, he doesn't,
questions.
yeah.
Oh, sure, we need, we'll email you
I
a
can
copy of
text
that for
I
that
can
when we get
text
to
him
the
a
action
copy
item.
of it. Oh,
Or,
Yeah,
and I'll send you a copy here, sorry.
Here.
sorry about that, Justin.
are you doing that?
Yeah, I
All
got it.
right.
Well, I mean, this is an action item later, unless there's
Yeah.
other questions. I mean, I think we kind of need to keep pushing through the agenda. Chris, are you,
Yeah, fine.
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Next is Amber's update on the master plan. I will say we've put her off a few times, so that's not, she hasn't been necessarily avoiding us. We've taken this off the agenda a few times. I mean, there was a public, they met with the public, but with that, I think I'll just turn it over. I guess the only other thing I would say is the traffic flow stuff came out of the public meeting, and then so I think that's where a lot of that information you're seeing is kind of coming from that.
Yep, I can kind of talk through that. So, in fact, I added a few things in here just so we could do a bit of a recap, because it's been a while. In fact, we talked about this last December, but March was our really first board meeting here where we talked about it. Really talked about the process we were going through, and you guys had a lot of good questions. In March also is when we then started our assessments. So our team went out on site and looked over everything, did visual observations and did interviews. All the staff was really key to this, the principals and some of the maintenance staff, just giving us good information, what they knew had been going on. In April, we did our first vision team meeting, which was basically Lauren's administration in each of the buildings, and so April was where we said, okay, what can you add to this? What have we not picked up yet? What have you heard from people telling you? In May, then we took that month to compile that information that we got from the school, anybody from this district, and our findings, put it all together, and then came back to that same group of people in June and really said, here's everything that we've heard and talked about, here's additional information, prioritize those needs. July is when you came to my office and we did that update with you guys there and really kind of gave you a lowdown on everything, high level, super high level. All this has been high level. And then September, so that was what we've done with you guys so far. That was kind of the last update that we were able to give to all of you. In September, we had a Tongi Strong meeting where we did a prioritization of the needs. So we basically went through the entire process with them as well and talked to them about here's all the different things we found. And we said, help us prioritize this. And then October, we really, in fact, I met with Lauren and a couple of board members and we kind of talked about update and getting prepared for this December board meeting, and well, here we are. So, and I sent you the notes. So and of course, Drew's got them printed out. So the notes I sent you were from that community meeting. I don't need to read them. I'd rather, if you guys have questions, focus on what you have questions on. I will, however, show this because just a little bit of explanation on this piece. The notes really speak for themselves, and it really was, we tried to capture the conversation because there was a lot that happened within that. And I'll come back to those. I'll hit a few points in my notes in a second. But of this table that we did, so we did a polling system, anonymous polling system, and allowed them to vote on which items they felt like should be priorities. And real quickly, they all recognized, well, anything that's deferred maintenance is a priority for us. And if we had to pick 3, that eats up all of our 3. So the reds, which you can't really read on this screen, but the reds were deferred maintenance items. They said those all, it's like boilerplate, those have to be done. Can we pick our priorities past that stuff? Absolutely. So then the next 3 in the blue are what they picked. And first, a little bit bigger text that you can read here. The 2 items at the high school that really have already been a focus. This really helped drive home and really verified all the things that we've been hearing up to this point. The transportation maintenance facility, whatever that ends up looking like and wherever it is, and then parking for West Campus and the buses. Those were the 2 priorities that had the 36% vote. And then at 30% vote right underneath that was some kind of track, multi-purpose field, outdoor learning area at the middle school. So those were the 3 that were, rose to the top. And then the other thing, and this was in your notes too, the other thing that we found interesting was that, so there was quite a bit of discussion about this, and the community group, it kind of went back and forth, and they were like, some people said, well, we said this was for high school, how can we do anything different? And the other group said, well, if we've got overage of funds, it's responsible to take care of other items that we know that are important in our needs within the district. And and some of the notes even talked, we captured in those notes as well. It was really important to that group that if funds were to be spent outside of the high school site, that the messaging was super important. How we did that, how we got that information out until the community understood how the process got to what those items were and how we were spending those funds. But a majority of the group said that it was okay to spend, yes, exactly. Get myself confused every time I look at this. A majority of the group said it was okay to spend the funding outside of that. We just have to be really careful with that. So a couple other things, just as you look through the meeting notes, and this is really where the site circulation piece came into play, was the group said, well, what happened with the site circulation? And they said, we really want some more research into that because as parents, as people who visit the sites, we see a lot of issues happening there. And so that was something that I'm going to talk about next. We did some more research onto that. And then there were a couple other smaller things that were touched on here and there. The playground piece that we've talked about, we already touched on those deferred maintenance items. Really, there was good alignment between what that community group said and what we heard at each site from administration. Any questions on any of that?
What do you think was the, something that stood out to you that, out of that community meeting that maybe you, I mean, what was your top three takeaways? I mean, because one of the things that deferred maintenance just came up as like a real high priority.
Yes, absolutely.
That's rare.
Yeah, that was a huge, yes, they all said like, you know, without a doubt, that's the stuff that we want to take care of first, but it wasn't the only thing they wanted to take care of. The whole group overwhelmingly said, we don't want to just do that, we want to be able to take care of some of these other needs that have been identified. And then the other takeaway, I think this one was important too, because it was a big discussion. And those people, it was the majority of those people that have been with us since the beginning of this entire process, and they were all pretty adamant that they want to be able to put the district in a good position across all of the facilities and all the properties.
Do you think that it would be accurate to say that because I think there's a possibility that the deferred maintenance is everything, right? I mean, if you have limited funds.
Oh, you mean all that you could do?
Yeah.
Potentially.
So do you think the takeaway from that was take care of the deferred maintenance, and then if there was anything left,
Yes.
then they would like to do other things in
Yes,
addition?
exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
I've seen this a couple times, so I guess I don't really have any
Okay.
questions of that.
Well, we can come back, because the second piece of what I wanted to talk about was the site circulation piece. So from that, what I wanted to do is be able to just spend a few hours, spend not a ton of time, just a little bit of time doing a high-level review so that you guys would be better informed about what are our options here. Are we looking at things that are in excess of millions of dollars, or can we do some things even operationally to fix it? What's the spectrum like? So we had a couple guys come out, and I had two guys come out and they observed drop off and pick up. And big thanks to the middle school and elementary school principals because they were instrumental in making sure we got the good information. They provided us a lot. But we really wanted to look at how efficiently can we reconfigure it? How better can we use the space that you already have? How can we keep students safe, obviously? And just do that quick high-level observation. We have about 12 hours into this study from the guys that I have working on it. So not a ton of time, just trying to give you guys a high-level overview. When they were there, middle school didn't have as much congestion, but they are unloading on the driver's side, which is not ideal, obviously, everyone knows that. And then the elementary schools, cars did back up onto East and Washington. So really, I think you all know kind of some of those existing obvious ones. And then I think you all have the exhibits, and we don't have to go into too big of detail, but the first one really was, what can we do to use this site and not make a ton of modifications to it? So what can we do to use what's mostly there, try and make use of it, keep costs down, and yet improve the circulation. So as you can see, there's a new, see if I can point on this with my mouse. There we go.
Can you go into some of the requirements that you're trying to meet here? Is there a certain
Yes, I can.
length,
Yes.
distance?
No, yes, but it's all based on car stacking. So at the elementary school, we're trying to fit around 100, a little bit over 100 cars on site because you have such a big elementary that's larger than normal. And the middle school, around 40. And I didn't write down my notes of how many you can stack right this second now, but I can find that for you. So in these different so 100 at the elementary school, around 40 at the middle school. So option one, so both of these options get you there and then some. This option one gets you right around 100 and the middle school 60. And you can see the way we're doing that is this extra leg here. So that's extra pavement, this piece. I'm sure you all recognize that. So as you come in, you would be able to curl around. So you're naturally then gaining extra on-site stacking space, and then you're getting the kids out of the car on the right side, passenger side.
So where did you come out? Where did the 100 come from?
where did the 100 on stacking requirement come from? Them observing, seeing how many are moving through the site.
Okay.
And checking it against we always have a number that we assume based on the student count at the school, and then they, through their observations, they,
How did that align with what you were assuming?
how did where we thought it would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
For about 870.
Exactly,
students.
yes,
Okay.
that's right. So option 2, you have that in your packet too. This is the, much more pavement option. This gets you to 140 stacking spaces for elementary school and 83 for the middle. And you can see why. We're adding, you would add a significant amount of pavement that then allows you to wind in. So it would be turning what's an out right now at the middle school into an in only. And so you would come in, loop around in that new loop, still drop on the passenger side of the car, and then exit out a new curb cut. Again, have not taken the time to talk to city or anybody else about that extra curb cut there.
It looks like a go-kart track.
Lots of speed bumps along there for after hours play. And then you can see the elementary school then gains this entire loop here. So this is what would get you off of East Street, off of Washington completely. You'd be able to get everybody onto site, circulate through there. And then we threw in, there'd be some gates and things like that that you want to have at certain times of the day to control the traffic flow as well.
My first look at that is there's no way that makes budget. It's budget competitive.
And we didn't run it even up the flagpole to, I couldn't even tell you, we didn't even run the numbers on this yet.
Well, it's, if you just measure the length, it's something times the other one.
Exactly, yes.
I think, does this help to give us ideas of what could be done, and then we would engage?
So all this was to show you, again, I wanted to be able to say, here's something very minimal you could do that doesn't have a ton of cost impact, but it could improve. And then here's another kind of on the other end. I just wanted you to see a couple of options. I haven't talked to the board as a whole to even know what the temperature is for pursuing this. Cost-wise, what kind of budget you want to throw at any of that kind of stuff. You absolutely could, yes, if you're looking to hire another firm or you want to, whatever steps you want to take forward on this, that's what I wanted to kind of get your feeling on tonight.
Yeah, I've had a hunch that this probably doesn't get resolved until 14th Street comes through and it connects there from the south. Because then that gives you the link. Because anything else you're trying to force it to work. And this addresses the, let's not look at this one. I don't like that. Let's go to the other one. This one, you get into it, you have the distance, but what it doesn't do is address things a little bit out of our control, which is the East Street, the intersection up there, which is probably, if you were to rank the risk, like vehicular safety issues, that intersection is probably near the top, right?
But would you say that's because vehicles are backing up onto the...
Yeah, it's turning. I think it's turning lane, in both directions, right turning lane or a right turning lane coming into the site, and then a left turning lane coming into the site, and then it's that intersection's offset. And if that I haven't sketched it out. It's just like if that intersection was squared up and you had stuff, but that's outside of our control for the people sitting here. That's a city item. To where, because when you've done drop off and pick up there, like I have many times, it's the hesitancy of people going around or trying to get through that intersection that aren't turning, or people trying to turn left, and then you have people that are coming straight, and then that offset intersection, somebody's sitting there trying to go south, maybe to turn onto Washington or Evans, whatever name it's called, or trying to get onto the site. And it's just, you have, if you were to count up the number of potential vehicle interactions there, it's a lot.
Well, this just counts, this is just the existing flow, right? This doesn't,
No, this adds a street back behind the middle school and kind of loops it around and changes the flows a little bit.
Yeah.
well, no, I mean, I'm just saying that the analysis or whatever, I mean, because I mean, one thing we talked, at least in what we've met, is the bus barn thing's on here, and last year or so we explored looking at where that location goes, and the 12th Street access out the back of the school is, I mean, I just think there's a whole bunch of issues that got to get like tied into one. I mean, when we look at this, I mean, it's almost like a work session all of its own to outline all the problems and issues and get all the people and entities involved that need to be there and find enough firm that, I mean, I'm exploring what options there are with people with the ability to help address that. I don't know. I mean, that was the kind of the opportunity I saw when we were talking about this is,
Yeah, all we really did was an internal site circulation study, that's it. As far as a traffic study and everything that you're pointing out, Drew is super important also, and that's the piece that you could get. You absolutely could go down that route, because all that will feed into then this and these options, absolutely.
but back to when you met with this community, I mean, they wanted us to spend the money at the high school, but then this was appeared to be at the top of the notes of other opportunities.
It was absolutely, yes.
Questions, comments, other board members, or? I mean, maybe, I mean, where do we head now in this process with what we've done with the community meeting and with us?
So I've got a master plan ready to go. It'd be up to you guys to decide. I mean, I know we've kind of talked a lot about second phase getting started and, you know, timing of using funds for any of these kind of items. So I'm kind of at a hold. I don't want to progress anything until we, you know, have a good direction from you guys on what you want to do and what the timeline would be. So.
How complete is our deferred maintenance list?
Yeah, so we have a miss for sure. We have a miss on the elementary school playground. And I've talked with Lauren a little bit of that. In fact, I had somebody come out today and take a look at that. I'm pretty confident with the rest of it. That being said, with having that discovery of the miss, you know, I had site review done with a firm that's not within, that was the only thing not under DLR group. And it's on me, that's a miss. So I'm going back and reviewing everything else. I have pretty good confidence because the rest of them are my guys and my team. But we're going back and doing another review just to be sure we don't have anything else missing.
When would you be comfortable with sharing that so that we can review it?
If you give me a chance to, like I said, go back and review,
Right.
I think I could be ready probably January, end of January.
If we have that list in January though, I mean, what, you said you have a master plan. I mean, you just need, I mean, we need to decide on dates and dollars?
I mean, I can-
Or are we gonna go through some exercise to prioritize these projects
Right.
at a different, I mean, maybe an outside session or something? I'm just trying to figure out how we should push this forward.
Yep, it would be up to you and how you want to go through it from this point on. I mean, I think you've got your recommendations from your community and your administration, and just be a matter of going through those then, along with the cost information, and we've got that escalation information in there, and just kind of, along with, you know, talking about phase 2 of the high school. Obviously, that's an important piece too. Talking with that schedule as well, so.
Does that maintenance list include potential cost ranges with it?
It does.
Okay.
We've got immediate, we got if you paid for it today, we've got if you paid for it in the long
So
or
it has some
short term.
escalation factored in?
Yep.
How many years out does it go?
And all of that was done by McCown, and I have to look back through. I think we did a 5 to 10 range and a 10 plus.
Okay. That's fine. Was the T-Pack HVAC on it?
Well, we started with an audit, and then it
Okay.
kind of migrated. It's moved lists a few times. It's always been part of the discussion.
Yeah.
Well, do we need to have like an update in January at the board meeting and then a follow-up meeting after that to like, and then I don't know where that puts us out with our contract. I know we set kind of a certain amount of money and we're about at the end of that.
That's right. Yep.
Again, I'm not just necessarily asking Amber the question. I'm kind of trying to fish around for some comments from the board and how they want to.
What I'd like to do is take a look at it and then talk about what criteria are we going to utilize to prioritize things? To what degree does something that's deferred impact safety? To what degree does something that's deferred impact more than, or a broader group of people, right? And start to list that out to what you got on the community side of things was be transparent with how we're making decisions and create, and it doesn't have to be a long list, it can be 5 to 10 items that we just use to evaluate and sort and filter items. And cost is one of them, obviously. And then determine how much we're willing to do, and it may be overall budget driven or it may be scope driven.
Yeah, I think I don't think time, unless it's deferred maintenance, time, we're trying to be patient. But we need to kind of keep pushing through to get what's the top of the list and start identifying how to push that forward. Or if I guess if that's even feasible. So I guess an update in January.
So that would be at the board meeting, so that's not the end of January, that's.
Right.
Are
Yep.
you
I was just
comfortable
saying,
with
when is
that?
board meeting? Probably not.
Probably the 10th?
The 10th.
Because it's pretty early, because the first is a Monday.
Do you have two? You have one on the 24th?
Or it's
10th, January 10th.
No, okay, not yet. Maybe we will. Are you proposing one?
February might be better.
I think so.
we need to hold this till February and then go with that.
It's tough for me to say, depending upon what's on that list and how urgent some things might be.
Personally, my review, I think February would be a good time because I can get you the list, all of you, and review it, and then we can
Ahead of time.
Yep.
Okay, let's go for this on the agenda for February and then let's be trying to find some time to get some more of this, keep pushing through. And I guess if you have an update on kind of where we're at too, and contract wise, we can also look at that.
In February, you mean, or?
Or even earlier.
Yeah, if you had that, you'd probably do in January too. Or,
I did some research on the playground capacities and stuff like that. My assumption is, since it wasn't on your list, that some of that time is working up some cost estimates, and so it's in line with everything else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Would it be appropriate for me to send that through Lauren so that you have that information?
Absolutely. That would be great.
any other questions or comments for Amber? Or I don't know if I'm.
Justin, do you have anything?
Justin, did you hear that?
I didn't hear that part, Jen. You were cutting out a little bit.
Sorry, we didn't know if you have any questions or anything for DLR.
No, I've just been trying to follow along. It's just kind of hard on the computer.
All right. we're gonna meet again in February, so.
And just to verify, February is not when you want to prioritize. We want to talk about it, set kind of a plan and a process for how to prioritize, and then we'll do that separate. All right.
So was there a life cycle analysis of this pavement here,
Of what?
the asphalt pavement here in the parking lot?
Asphalt pavement. I believe that they did that, yes. I need to check with my civil engineer.
The reason I'm asking is we approved
Right.
and chip and sealed 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. I'd like to know where we're at.
Yep, absolutely.
And then the folks that were involved in this traffic study, are they your in-house traffic engineers?
Okay, so let's back up. It's just a site circulation study.
Okay.
Calling it a traffic study really isn't accurate because they didn't really look in, I mean, that would be exterior, outside of our site circulation. So it was my site planner, so I have a landscape and site planning group within my office. Those are the two guys who came out and did the study of the two options that you see.
Okay.
And he's also the one that came out and looked at the playground at the elementary school.
Very good.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Amy.
I'll be talking with
Thanks.
you.
Okay, still awake back there?
All right, how's everyone?
Hello, hello.
Good.
Hey, hi. Wait, what else? I'm doing that good. So I'm Casey Brown. I'm the principal at the middle school. Ashley Ulrich, assistant principal. So we were slated to present to you guys in September, October. It was a little busy talking about other things. So we're here, and you know, not a lot has changed, which is good news on our end. So we're just going to kind of fill you in on some of our goals. We started our year, especially with kind of the new shift in administration, wanting to set 3 goals for the building moving forward. So we had our 3. Ashley and I, it was a big piece where we wanted to get into classrooms to just see what's going on, see what the teachers are teaching, see what the kids are doing. So as we kind of started the school year, it was going to be our main goal to get into those classrooms, to see what's happening, but also to keep teachers accountable as well. So our big thing is we wanted to see what students were doing, what teachers were doing, instructional methods that they were putting in place, posting learning targets, so being really intentional with their instruction, and then seeing the percentage of students that are engaged and participating. So that was our goal number 1. We wanted to have 100% of our teachers post their relevant learning targets, so they're very intentional in their instruction. And then we also wanted to see 80% of the classes seeing where majority of the students are actively participating. So that was our first goal. Our second goal had to do with map data. And I did email this to you guys if you ever want to browse for your entertainment. But we did set our second goal based on our map data. So that section A, it's hard to read, it says low growth, low achievement. We certainly want to look at those kids. Those are our kids that are a little bit lower and we're not seeing much growth from them. High growth, low achievement, that's our kids that are still kind of lower academically, but we're seeing a boost from them. So they have a little bit of growth there. Then we have our group of kids that are in that low growth area. So they haven't bumped much in their scores, but they're still scoring at high achievement levels. So their academics are still on par. And then we have our kids that are in our high growth, high achievement, meaning that they are doing really well academically and we're seeing some positive growth. So we wanted to see 80% of our building in either B, C, or D. We want them either high growth, we want to see them growing, we want to see them, or we want to see them achieving. So we want majority of our students to be in that yellow, green, or orange area. So that's our second goal. So we have our goal of being in the classrooms for accountability, for high instructional standards. We have our second goal. Our first goal kind of leads into our second goal. And then we have a third goal of just continuing to build a strong climate and culture in our building for our staff and our students. So we want our staff to be happy, we want our students to feel safe, and to have a strong environment for our student, staff, and our families, the community around. So we're wanting to continue that positive climate that we've been able to establish in the building. So those are our three goals. The first two are definitely more academic based, and then this one has to do with our social and emotional piece. So our first goal is our goal of high impact instruction and quality teaching strategies. So with goal number one, we set that goal beginning of August, before our teachers even walked through the door. So we knew that that was going to be a goal that we had for the year, and in order to be able to see quality teaching strategies in the classroom, we needed to be proactive in August. So before this kids even showed back up into the building, we had professional development in August. We were able to then revisit the same professional development in October to revisit and emphasize the importance of strong learning intentions. We want to be very intentional with what we are teaching, and hitting that success criteria. So the big piece, it's pretty simple. We want to start with the end in mind. Where do we want our kids to be? So we start with the end in mind, then we want to work backwards. So we want to be very intentional with our success criteria, and we want to be very intentional with what's going on in the classroom. So we brought in a consultant from Greenbush in August, who was able to kind of walk us through some important steps for creating meaningful learning intentions. He was able to work with the teachers on creating strong instructional strategies, a variety of instructional strategies, and how to best use our block for 90 minutes and teaching students for a 90-minute block, kind of working smarter, not harder. So we had that professional development in August with our consultant, and then in October, Ashley and I revisited those same intentions. So we were able to just dive in a little bit deeper. So we set that in August. We revisited that again in October because then we want to, that's our expectation. And we want to it's not just one and done. We want to keep revisiting that important piece. So also we're staying accountable. These are our walkthrough data. So we've created a walkthrough tool. So anytime that we're in a classroom, we're looking for certain things. We're looking for instructional delivery. Are teachers up? Are they working with their students? Are they working in small groups? Are the learning targets posted? Are basically it's the target. Where are the kids? What are they going to learn and how are they going to learn it? We want that to be posted so the teachers are able to articulate that and the students are able to see it and speak to that as well. So with that, we can see that they are the red and the blue. That's kind of our hit. And the percentage of students that are actively participating also shows that the blue says all students and the red is majority of students. So we either had all students participating or majority. Yeah.
So when you talk about those goals, I mean, is that something that the teacher does at the beginning of every class? Hey, this is what we're going to do in the class today. Here's what I want you to. Oh,
okay. Yep. So teachers have it different ways. Some of them have it posted on their whiteboard, and they might be doing the same kind of learning target for a handful of days in a row. Mm-hmm. Or they might be kind of doing one thing. So, teachers might say, students will examine the advantages and disadvantages of the North and the South during the Civil War, something like that, where that will be the posted, and the teacher, they start that at the beginning of the lesson, and it's kind of the roadmap. So the teachers are very intentional with where the class is going, and the kids are also aware. Because that preview is really important. The kids kind of need to have an idea, a preview of what's to come, so they're able to kind of be able to navigate the class and what's going on.
Good with the
And our
notes, too.
teacher, yeah, sorry, and I was gonna say, our teachers actually use that language across the board, and they say, you know, our learning objectives for today, and they'll go through and they'll talk about objectives. So when we will go our in rooms, kids can talk to objectives.
Yeah.
And teachers will, sometimes will be in the class, maybe at the end of the class period, and they'll be like, Miss Brown, and they'll go back, they're like, we've already talked about our learning objectives. I'm like, all right, fantastic, you know, so they're very intentional with posting those, so. So we do stay accountable with keeping track of what's going on in the classroom, what we're seeing in the classroom, you know, what the kids are doing, what the teachers are doing. And overall, what we are seeing is, yes, teachers are posting the objectives. Yes, the kids can articulate and talk about the learning target, about what's going on in the classroom. And yes, the students are actively engaged. So we're able to see all of those things. So that's our piece on kind of our accountability in the classroom. And our second goal is data-driven instruction using our MAP data. So in the fall, we took our test in September, and like I said, we want our kids to be either high growth or high achievement. So they might not be on grade level academically, but if they're showing growth, we're heading in the right direction. Or they're already achieving really well, and they're also heading in the right direction. So we do want to know that warning zone, which is that low growth, low achievement.
So,
yeah.
question. So, how do you define, you know, high achievement? What, like, is that a?
When we start to put our kids into like our reading assist class, we have levels of support. We look at the 25th percentile. So I kind of look at our data in two ways. So we have our 25th percentile is kind of our warning students, and then I also look at our data at the 50th percentile because I also want to know kind of where they are, like our average student.
So the high achievement, what percentile and up are they typically?
50th percentile.
50. Okay, top half.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we have 23% of our students that are in that warning zone, but we have 77 that were kind of in that safe zone. So we certainly want to, you know, keep our eye on those kids in the warning zone, but we still want to get those kids that are in the safe zone. We still want to continue to help them grow.
So the way you're defining it, though, you will never have more than 50%, or you're guaranteed to have 50% in C and D.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So then the only thing you can do is move folks from A to B.
Right. And that's our biggest thing. They might be, we want to get them out of that low growth, low achievement.
Right.
Even if they're still in that low achievement round area, we want to make sure that we're getting them to the point where we're seeing some growth out of that.
Okay, so how do you define high growth then?
I mean, at that point, we're looking at if they have high growth, they get a projected score.
Uh-huh.
So if they get a score on a reading test, then the MAP test gives them a goal, a goal for the next round.
Right.
And so that might be, for some kids, they might say, hey, 3 points is high growth.
Right.
It's kind of, it's not,
It's individually
it's
based.
individual.
Yes.
So some kids, they might say, hey, that kid might only get 3 points, and hey, that's high growth for them. Or there might be some kids that might have a growth goal of 7 points, so each kid is going to be
So
different.
is that projected point, is that what defines high growth, or is it something above, if you're above it, or is it just that point?
It's all individual,
Uh-huh.
and if they hit that individual point,
Yes.
it's considered growth.
Oh, is it
Yeah.
considered high growth then?
If they, so you have to realize though, high growth, if you're talking about how to get to the green, high growth.
No, even if for A to B, like what,
Yes, if they hit their growth, it's for them, it's
That's
considered
high
high growth.
No,
Okay.
no matter what.
Yes.
I'm sorry, you're talking to an engineer, so.
Yes.
No, you're fine.
If they hit their goal, that is the target growth, and that is considered high growth.
Okay,
They still might be in that low achievement area, but they could still be in high growth.
Okay,
So the kid could still be in the third percentile of their reading score of their classmates, but maybe they were in the first percentile.
No, so now they're high growth.
So now that's
Yeah.
considered high
So-
growth because they're making progress from themselves.
yes, and I'm completely on board with that. The only question, because I don't always understand all the details of how math works. So over time, years, right? So somebody's low achievement starting out with, but high growth. If you consistently hit the high growth mark, are you getting caught up over time to closer to the median number?
Depends on where you started. I mean, we have some kids, if we're speaking to our special ed students, that they read at a second grade level and they show high growth every year, but they might be at a spring second grade level, and then they might be at a fall third grade level. So they're not necessarily making it to grade level, but they're showing improvements.
Yeah. Well, because I was thinking in terms of, because you deal with so many different situations, I understand that. You could deal with a child that, let's say they came into the district and they are capable, of being at grade level. They just aren't there yet. And that's the scenario I'm thinking about, to where you're hitting that high growth. There isn't any medical or diagnosis or anything like that would prevent them from being capable of doing that, but does that keep?
Eventually, if you get that kid from District A to our district and we're clipping right along, eventually, if things are going, you're going to see high growth from him, and eventually he'll get to high achievement.
Okay.
So he'll be in that above average, that average to above average range in achievement, and we see growth every year.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. So that breaks it down for reading in the fall. We just did our map test last week for the winter, and we're still seeing very similar numbers. We didn't see a huge shift in our zones. So not a huge jump in growth from our fall to our winter. For math, we were kind of in that same area, 20 to 80% for our warning zone. So we do the exact same way with our reading. We get the same results with our math. Last week, I haven't been able to dive into our test results completely because we just wrapped up at the end of last week. But we did see that 60% showed growth in their math scores. And that could be 1 point that we're still showing growth. So not necessarily every kid met their growth goal. So if one kid had their growth goal of gaining 5 points, but they only gained 4 points, they showed growth, but they may not have hit their growth goal.
So they're not high growth, they're growing.
Right.
They're not high growth, okay.
Yep. So we showed 60% of our students showed growth, but not necessarily all of them hit that target goal. But we're still showing growth.
What do you think in a non-pandemic situation, what do you think our reasonable target range is for hitting your target or your target growth?
Each time you're wanting to grow between 3 and 5 points.
Okay.
So not drastic, but enough.
So when you get up, because if the focus is getting to high growth, turning the low achievers, low growth into high growth, right, the A to B, then, it's what's a reasonable target range to how many can you get? Because you had people that grew, but that technically every one of those that grew, if they didn't hit their target, then they could still be an A.
Right. Yep. They can. So that is why, I mean, this is a long work in progress. That's why we go back to being very intentional with our curriculum and our learning goals and setting this stage. I mean, we've only been diving into setting learning objectives, being intentional. We've really only been diving into that since August. So it's not going to be we took the test in September. We're now at December. It's going to take much longer than 3 months to start and really see that shift.
And that's why I said
Yeah.
semesters a year. So.
Oh yeah, it will. So what we're doing is how we use the test data. This kind of shows us, and you can't see it, but those are our students' names. So on the far left, those are our students that are kind of our lowest, and on the far right, those are our highest students. So I can click on any of those names, individual names, and it will give us basically a learning plan. If I click on the kids on the far right, it will say, Johnny is ready to learn this, and this in math. They've mastered this, they're ready for this. So I can click on those kids' names and see exactly what they need.
Now, we do a lot of tests. So is this MAP test data or is this state test?
This is all
This is
math.
map.
Yeah, this is all math. State test is good, and it's one of those things, but we get way more information out of our math tests.
Okay.
So how does this correlate with, so if you Google, if you're going to move to a school district, right, and you're going to Google how proficient are they in math and reading, and you get the number. So I know on one popular website in our league, we're number 6 out of the 9 schools. So if your goal is to be number 1.
As a district? As a district.
As a district, yes. But if your goal, so my question is, are you doing this because you see that this correlates, once you increase these scores and everything, this is your tool to then increase those scores?
Yes. So there is a report that I can pull that will say this kid is on track to score a 1, 2, 3, 4 on the state test.
Right.
This kid is on track to score a 21 on the ACT. So I can pull that score as well for those students. So we have that information as well. So we can see how they would correlate to our Kansas state assessment.
Which then transfers from district to district, and it gives you that correlation piece that you're looking for.
So if I was a math teacher and I got this end of our students, I have the far left end of the students, and I have the kids in the middle, that's kind of, I'm going to kind of group my kids according to their needs. So I might have those bottom 4 or 5 columns in a group, and I'm working on certain skills with those students because I can find some commonalities of things that they're missing. And then I go to the kids that are on that far right side, and I can group them together, and I can see some commonalities of what they're ready to do and what they're ready to tackle. And then the same thing in the middle. So I can use this as kind of my game plan and my roadmap going forward, what I need to tackle in my class for each individual kid.
So I have another question.
Yeah.
So I know that the amount of help that a teacher can give the people on each end of that classroom then is based on, I don't know I'll try to say this properly, but
I think I know where you're going with this. So we take this map data and we group our kids into classes based on their map scores. So we will have a class where the teacher knows exactly what their strengths and their weaknesses are, and they will run with a lesson plan for this group. And then we've got another class where we've got a group of these students that are all similar scores, and they're going to run with this. So rather than differentiating in each class block, they're able to so you don't have the whole spectrum from A to Z in one class.
right.
We have a class of all the A's and we have a class of the Z's. That kind of makes sense. So we were very intentional with our school scheduling to make sure that the kids were able to be with peers of similar ability, so they're all receiving the same content. So you don't have whack-a-mole teacher trying to get all of these things done in one class. You're able to kind of do it all together.
Yeah,
that answer your question?
It does, because I've found that certain teachers are better than others, or I know there's circumstances like some have more time, some have more, like they identify the needs differently or whatever, but there's some kids that need extra stuff and desire extra stuff. It doesn't matter where they are, and finding those resources aren't necessarily something they have to work for, right? So not all teachers are able or take the time. Like I know that there's a lot of reasons they don't, but some do. So if you have them by grades, then that eliminates that a little bit more, because then they can provide that.
Well, and it allows for that enrichment piece for our greens. So when you're talking about the green and you've got our high achievers, our high growth, all of that, well now those are available, and that enrichment's possible, where the supports and some of the other tiered systems that need in place, on the left of the screen, all of those are in place. Mm-hmm. And so like you were saying, everything from tiered systems of support all the way down to all the way up are in place because of master schedule and scheduling.
Yeah, perfect.
We have one 8th grade, for our 8th grade language arts class, where, Ms. Hunter is on the path of doing argumentative essays with students, and that, that's a high level assignment that can be really complicated. But we have some kids that don't even start with a capital and end with a period. So we do have a huge scope. And so Miss Hunter teaches some of her classes argumentative essays, and she teaches some of her classes. She's figured out exactly what they need, and she's back to putting together a simple paragraph and then leading into a 5-paragraph essay. So even though she's teaching 8th grade language arts, she's teaching 5 different lessons to hit the needs of her students in all of her different classes. And that's not just Miss Hunter, that's a way that teachers are rolling.
So what's something that, you're getting into it. This is amazing. I love this. So what's one of the things that you've run into that has been kind of the I would say you learn something that you then use to adjust, because as you try anything new, you're learning as you go and adjusting. So what's some of the things that you've
we're learning as we go. The big piece is time. So just being really intentional with team time and teacher time, to be able to click on each kid and figure out what they need. That takes a lot of time, and we are very lucky to have team time and personal plan, but it's kind of a different beast. We certainly could utilize, we could use more time. And that's a big piece of it, because to really roll up your sleeves and get down to where you're very prescriptive on what each kid gets, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to just put all the paperwork out there, put all the information out there, and jump in and dive in.
Is that several times a semester, or is that every week?
Oh, no. So in order to be data-driven, and in order to have true data-driven instruction, that's something that teachers are having to look at weekly. When you ask a teacher to be data-driven and to use information to drive lesson plans, assessments, the whole gamut of instruction, it's something that they're looking at. If you want individual student, that's daily. They're looking at classes. Weekly, they're looking at whole groups, individual students. Once a week, they're having to monitor progress and, that informative sort of assessment piece where they're like, oh, Johnny didn't grasp this today. We're going to revisit it. So,
but we're not there.
We're not there
because
we don't have necessarily the time to do the deep dives of data yet that we're hoping to do.
And we're just starting, so we've got to kind of baby step our way into it. But we have been able to kind of decipher what we need to do. We have all of the information that we have all the steps in front of us, and now it's just a matter of just jumping in and
running with it.
Yeah. So
how long do you think it'll take to where you feel like you're mature with it, like you've got everything?
A couple of years.
Yeah.
Couple years.
Say a couple more years.
Yeah.
Goal 3 is something that I think is really, really important to both Casey and I and all of our teachers. And that's the whole idea that we're creating a positive social, emotional climate and culture. The biggest thing with this is that the pandemic has done a doozy. A little number on a lot of our kids. And just creating an atmosphere where they're excited to be back in there, they feel safe, they have a place where they're wanting to grow and learn and have a continued learning mindset is something that we are continuing to push forward. We are using Panorama this year, and it was pretty cool to see that from pandemic last year to when we took this in the fall, we've shown growth in every area. Just getting back in school showed an increase in social emotional learning. With Panorama, we've already done the student survey, the family school relationship survey, and teacher and staff survey is something we're looking to do when we come back from the new year. That's something we've been working with Tanya, and we're hoping to kind of roll that out just to make sure we're continuing to build a strong climate and culture. And part of that is that family aspect too, and really having parent engagement and involvement in student learning and providing the support where it's necessary for all stakeholders. This is just a couple of our results that we are looking at and how to improve and where we are really strong. Our 6th through 8th graders have shown that our top 3 competencies are that in our school we have a supportive relationship. They all feel that they're having classroom efforts, 76% of them, and 74% feel that they have pretty good self-management in a situation. And I'm going to go more in detail with these for you just in a minute. Our 3 weakest competencies are self-efficacy, grit, and emotion regulation. Emotion regulation, we kind of talked with our teachers about this in the PD, and no one was shocked because we've been learning from home, we've been wearing masks, we've been having everything about school completely interrupted, and now we're trying to revisit what it was to them once. And that whole regulation piece and them being able to control it, that's a huge factor in them being able to learn successfully.
It's tough for that age group too.
It is. Middle school's hard. I mean, they're trying to figure out a lot, and let alone how to regulate their own emotions. This is really exciting for our building to see because 83% of our students feel that they have a supportive relationship in the middle school. They feel that with friends, family, and adults at school, they are getting what they need from those relationships. You can tell it went up from 80% in the fall of 2020 up to 83%. So we did increase from last year to this year. Classroom effort was the same, 70% up to 76%. And this is that amount of effort that they're exerting, behaviors we're seeing, and kind of what it takes to have a strong learning environment and perform at a high level pretty regularly. So the classroom effort is something that we're hoping to see consistency build over time. Self-management went from 70% to 74%. Self-efficacy, this is how much students believe they can succeed in achieving academic outcomes. So this is one of our lower, and 52% feel, I'm able to get there. It might take me some time, but I can get there. So what we're doing is looking at different lessons, avenues to create a self-drive, a little motivation, and have some of those academic outcomes be a little more present and self-aware that they're capable.
Is that kind of like self-confidence?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Grit is another one, and I think we would both agree grit kind of lends itself in a lot of these. Having, strong willpower and that motivation is part of grit. Having the ability to control and regulate your emotions, well, part of that's grit. So grit kind of extends itself into a lot of social emotional competencies that we've seen. And then the lowest was the emotional regulation. It went from 41% to 46%. So it did go up from last fall to this fall. But we're still sitting pretty low with how well students regulate their emotions. This is something that our counselors do a really good job of, our social worker, our school psych, of diving into. And looking at lessons and kind of what supports we need in place on a daily basis in our classrooms and in our building. Something that we've done with our staff is we've kind of shared this formula, and that it's social emotional character development plus social emotional learning skills equals social emotional growth. And so what this allows staff to do is be able to see where we're growing in knowledge and performance behaviors. And over time, they're going to be able to evaluate this behavior has affected this learning how. This behavior makes this learning better how. And we continue to provide staff with lessons, tools, support. Tuesdays are social emotional learning lessons in our warrior time. Every one of our teachers does a lesson put out by our counselors that provides resources, supports, and tools necessary for our middle schoolers to be successful in a range of topics and categories. We really felt like this was important because it connects and supports all of our stakeholders, and some of the information on Tuesday lessons kids are taking home, and these are conversations and topics happening in households, which is also extremely important. The other really exciting thing that we did is we started Warrior Time clubs. And we originally said clubs are going to start once a month. We had teachers put out things they were interested in and things they would like to do with students. And it was everything from gardening to card games to dice games, fishing, karaoke. So we created a spreadsheet of teachers' interests. Then we had kids go in and sign up things they were also interested in, and we kind of paired them all up. Well, we started it, and it was a huge success. Every kid pretty much got in a club of their choice, their top choice. It was actually such a hit, everyone wanted to do it more. Students and staff. Our staff was like, we love it, we want more time. Because it connects students and teachers on a different level and provides that shared interest where they get to see them in a different piece outside of a classroom. And that relationship piece is huge. It provides a stronger relationship to be built, and it provides that one kid maybe a connection that they're missing somewhere else. And so Warrior Time clubs, we were kind of like, ooh, see how this goes, and it's turned out to be a great success for our building as a whole. I think we're really fortunate because we feel coming into a building new, both of us in new roles this year, that our staff continues to go above and beyond for our students, what's necessary. But our kids have taken on everything that we've rolled out of them and done a really nice job with executing what's been asked of them and performing to a high level. And everyone's just kind of continuing to get back in the swing and really just take whatever is rolled out, whatever's kind of thrown at them. And we're seeing a lot of high achieving and, continued social emotional growth and academic growth to happen pretty much on a daily basis. So that's the middle school in a nutshell. I almost wore my Christmas sweater for you guys today, but I felt like it might be a little much. It was full sequins. So that's Spirit Week. It was still Spirit Week this week. So, do you guys have any questions for us?
Like we've been asking as we've been going.
One other question on the growth. So you have in there, high achieving, low growth. Was it just to keep it to two different groups, or was it, because I'm thinking about over time is a student that is high now but is low growth, are they at risk over time?
So our high achieving, low growth kids could be, we have a kid that's at the 99th percentile in math.
Okay.
Well, you can't, I mean, he's already there. So that's, you've got your high achievement, you're not gonna see a lot of growth. I mean,
He'll continue to be on pace. He'll be on target and above.
Okay. Well, if he's on target and above with the math, then he is high growth.
Well, but he can't go up a whole lot from 99.
Right, so his target is still.
he'll be 99th percentile with his peers. So he will continue to grow, but it's still showing growth in he's gonna always be at the 99th percentile of his peers. Maybe he drops for whatever reason on one of his tests and he goes to the 96th percentile. Well, then if he takes it again, it'll be up to the 99th. Then you would see high growth. But he will continue, even if he stays on track the way he's going, he's just always going to be in that high achievement. That's why you have to look at the percentile of the student as well. That's going to give you a lot of information as well.
But he still has a target though, right?
Because we have some students that would be considered high achievement, high growth, but they're at the 51st percentile. Like, that's okay, but we certainly want them to get higher.
Okay.
So that kid at the 51st percentile is in the same green quadrant as the kid that's in the 99th percentile, but we need to focus on more than just their A, B, C, or D.
But your chart going across where you group them goes more by percentile than your 4 buckets.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yep. There's lots of reports.
Yeah.
Lots
Let
of,
us know. You can come look at
Yeah,
your reports.
we've got
Anytime. We can run them all for you.
Careful.
I'll just give you my password.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier.
No, Forrest is standing right there. No, we don't do
No,
that.
we'll create one for your own. So.
I have a quick question about Panorama. The group that you said, I think it was 83% that have strong relationships within the building. So you know the other percentage, like you know the names of the kids for.
So actually, part of our PD that we did in October is we went through by grade level the rosters, and we had our teachers dot every single kid that they felt they had a strong connection or relationship with. And it was amazing because it allowed us to see any kid that, maybe I'm not as close with Timmy, or June has 4 dots by her, 4 teachers are really close, but Mike has none or 1. And we were able to kind of catch kids, reconnect, realign, kids that might not have been on the radar having strong relationships. And with middle school kids, some of them don't want to hang out with you and have relationships with you. And I have a group at the lunch table. I'm like, you're going to love me by the end of the year. And they're like, no, we're not. But I'm going to keep trying. But we did take the time at PD to go through every single kid in our building and see what relationships they had in place already with our teachers.
Did that match with your Panorama?
It did.
So are those kids then assigned to a person to try to develop a relationship with?
So it's within their Warrior Time teachers, and that's who they have every single morning. And then we've had a couple coaches and a couple other teachers who maybe do art club or something that this kid's shown an interest in, and we're able to build a relationship maybe outside of Warrior Time to keep that connection with something that the student might have a bigger interest in, because that relationship would come more natural and not forced.
And we gave that information back to teachers to look at during team time and say, hey, we've got these kids that have 5, 6 dots next to their name, but these kids have 2. You need to be intentional with talking with kids in the hallway. So the team of teachers have that. We have that list. Our mental health team has that list to see who those kids are that don't have as many dots next to their name, to make sure that they don't fall through the cracks.
And that's really awesome in middle school. How are we going to transition that from middle school to high school then? Because I see a lot of kids that have a really good relationship with teachers in the middle school. They get to the high school and they've lost those relationships. And then they're trying to build new ones there, and it's a different beast, I think, for them.
Well, and I think one of the biggest factors that will help is going to be for the new high school, just proximity and closeness for this new building, and then just, creating that same safe space that they had. And it just comes with a lot of collaboration and just a continued, group effort to connect with kids, build a safe place. They're doing panorama as well, and so I'm sure with collaboration even between us, we could all work together to kind of transition 8th graders to the high school smoothly with supports in place. So that could be something that we kind of dive into as a team as well.
The Warrior Time groups, are those kids that are grouped together and they stay together, or is it a different group?
So Casey actually does that, and it was pretty amazing. I witnessed it this summer, and she sits and intentionally places every single kid.
So do they stay like seventh, like they're in the same?
No,
group?
they're each, so it's, because a lot of it is, I know enough, most of the kids, to know what they need personality-wise, if they need a teacher to be a mama to them, or if they need a guide teacher to give them a swift kick. I kind of know.
But what about the kids that are with them? That's what I was kind of thinking.
Do
Not
what?
necessarily the teacher, but the other kids with them.
So I go through and I look at a variety of things. I go through and I look at our high flyers behaviorally, and I spread them out, and then I look at our map data and I sprinkle on, kind of sprinkle out and spread out the low achievers, and then I look at our high achievers and I sprinkle through the high achievers. So there's a balance, and then I go through and I look at males and females, and I go through and I look at strong personalities and weaker personalities, or maybe this person's really quiet, but this person's really vivacious, but could be nice to this person and kind of break them out of their shell a little bit. So I'm pretty intentional with making those Warrior Time groups.
Well, we want just well-rounded Warrior Times, where every single one has the opportunity to connect at a variety of levels with teachers and peers.
And I don't keep them the same every year. I've switched it up every year. So
it would be nice to see something like that transition to the high school, where at least I've seen schools where they keep the same group K through 12. So they start with a group and they go every single year and they meet.
There's benefits to that, but I don't think the benefit. I don't think the benefits are strong enough to do that. I think you're gonna have stronger experiences if you mix it up a little bit. There's pros and cons to that. I personally would not do that in our building. But it definitely, I don't know how they do. They've got AAA. I don't know, that would be a way that they could be very intentional with their master schedule for next year and how they utilize that AAA time. That could be the most equivalent at the high school level, would be that AAA time to our Warrior
Well,
time.
they could, I would say, they are always really pretty intentional with their homerooms. And then what they could do is that homeroom could just travel from freshman year, sophomore year, junior year. So you do have a core group by the end. They would just have to look at what their needs are and what the criteria for their homeroom is. And that's something that it can definitely be a discussion.
Yeah, kind of hard to do that. It's high school, you're not high school.
Unless, the homeroom would be the only real place that it would have to be able to.
Do you all from the building administration side, do you all ever do presentations like this to each other to talk about here's what we're doing and
Yeah, we
what's
sit
working?
and talk about all this in admin meetings and with each other.
Any more questions? Thank you, ladies.
All right, see you guys.
Is everyone good, or do you need a break?
Break.
Do a 5-minute break.
It used to call triple A. It's called
Well,
Oh, here comes Karen. We'll give Karen just a minute here. Getting back into session. With that, I'd entertain a motion. We're on item 2, consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a
Go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
A second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. You want to vote on this, Justin?
Yeah, aye.
All right, unanimous. All right, that puts us into the superintendent's, or no, public forum. No public comments. All right, reports. Lauren.
Okay, and my report is attached. I'll go through this rather quickly, but this week, of course, very busy week as we get ready for the move. I haven't looked online here lately, but there has been some action on the online auction. It's being managed well, in our opinion. It's gone pretty well. December 20th is when Fry Wagner, through the 22nd is when Fry Wagner is moving all the teachers' equipment into the new learning center. Mitch and his crew will be moving a lot of furniture either into the chieftain room for short storage or helping with the abatement. Is that correct? Is that a lot of it, Mitch?
Yeah, it'll be a lot of movement to this building and middle school.
Right, and so everybody knows, all the other buildings had an opportunity to look at the furniture to see if there's anything that they're repurposing. So we feel pretty good about that, and at least they've had that opportunity.
It'll be quite a bit.
Yes, there is quite a bit. A lot of tables, file cabinets, those kinds of things. We've had a couple of 3 nonprofits contact us about the morning of the 23rd. So and that starts at 8 o'clock in the morning until noon, and then in the afternoon is the general public from 1 until about 5. And then of course, classes start January 5th in the new learning center. And they've, my only observation is they've got a lot of furniture to put together. And there's a lot of furniture, and it's time consuming, to put it together the way they are. So they're doing a great job. Everything looks really nice. It's just a matter of they're going to use all the time. They're going to need all the time. I did put Mitch and I and Cody did a little tour, listened to some quality sound systems from Daktronics. Very impressive. We went to a couple schools over north of Liberty, Missouri, and had a pretty good idea what we were going on there. I think there were some questions that Jim asked me about. My first year here, we did a rather small fix on the existing speakers that were there. And then this past year, right in the middle of football season, we lost the speakers that we had repaired a second time. And so the question is, how much money have we invested in the speakers that are on there now? It's right around $6,000 over the last 2 or 3 years, or last 3 years. And I'm just to the point, I think all of us, Mitch, Cody, and I are to the point where we just need to look at a quality system that'll last us for several years and not keep patching this up. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we're not doing it. Yeah, go ahead.
How old is the stuff?
The soundboard is probably 6 to 7 years old. That's not the question. The question is the speakers. And I don't know how old those speakers are. They've been around for a while. I really don't know. And Mitch, I don't know if you knew either. So it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but they're just done, is the best way to describe it. I did put some information in there just for you to look at. The system we're looking at is the 500, the S500, and we've heard it. It's for our size of facility, it's perfect. That includes all the equipment up in the field house box. Yeah, you wouldn't reuse the old soundboard. It all has its own system. So we'll bring that back in January when we have more bids. We're doing a little more work on just on the bids itself. I just don't want, I know the bleacher project is important to me because we've been talking about it for a couple of years. But once again, this kind of falls through the master plan process, and I get that. And I just want to know that, I put it in there because I visited with Heartland Bleacher a few weeks ago. The price of everything is going up. 2 years ago when I priced those bleachers, they have gone up about 25% in the last year, which is typical of a lot of things. Just throwing it out there. It's not getting any cheaper. This keeps going. Same bleachers, everything. It's just the cost. At some point, I would really like to have those bleachers ADA accessible. I think that's important. The safety factor is there. It's just a project that I think is important. The new academic center open house. What I'm suggesting, just because the way things are playing out, is maybe the first Wednesday in February, and we could start around 5 o'clock and go for a couple 2.5 hours or so, or however long it takes. McCown Gordon, DLR, Esky will probably be there just to be there, and this isn't a ribbon cutting ceremony or anything like that. This is just an opportunity for the community to come in and just walk through and just see the facilities. So that's really what I'm going to throw out there probably is that February, I think it's February 1st.
Second is a Wednesday.
Is something that we're looking at. Okay. The other thing is I really would like to maybe look at a possible work session in January. A lot of it is, we have so many things that I think the board and the administration just needs to talk about. The academic piece, is definitely one of them, but another piece that, we're very passionate about is how we're going to use West Campus effectively. We talked about an alternative school, virtual school, adult education, but that takes time to put that all together. And I just think we need some input from everybody on what that might look like. And so that would be something I would push for. Almost, you could call it a retreat if you wanted, but it's a work session. If we are even thinking about an alternative school or any kind of adult education for August of 2022, we have to be on that now. And otherwise, it's going to push off another year, which could happen. We just have to keep working at it, I think, and put it on our radar. If anybody, I mentioned this, if anybody, today I put out an email, if anybody wants to come in on the 23rd and just be around to help answer questions, not to load anything or carry anything, but people are just going to, I think, have questions throughout the building. And the administration will be there, Mitch will be there, but we could sure use any help if available. I think that's most all of my information at this time.
Do you have a safety plan established for the Learning Center?
For a safety plan, we'll work more on that. We talked quite a bit about that because it's been coming up. We know that.
Before students enter that building full-time, I think there needs to be some kind of safety plan established.
Excuse me.
Before the students are in that building full-time, there should be some kind of a safety plan established.
Yeah, okay. Well, we haven't sat down and done that so much, but we can do that. I know it's a topic of conversation, so, okay.
Isn't
I
that
can do
something
that.
that the firemen and the police, they all work together?
Yeah, the police and the fire have gone through it.
They go, yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can do
But
that.
usually it's like written and communicated and
Yeah.
practiced.
I think that would help. Yeah. Appreciate it. We'll do that. That's all I have, Jim.
Any other questions or anything?
So, those speakers, it looks like, because we paid extra money to have those pole mounts for the existing speakers on the new Like,
They were, sturdier.
right, so are we not going to use those for this one?
We wouldn't, the 500 is a standalone component.
Okay.
The only other option is if we were to do separate speakers without the sound. That's an option that we're getting a bid on.
Okay. And
Yeah,
you can't reuse the press box equipment?
No, this is all Daktronics. They have if you look on that one, I think there's a page that shows the microphone and the small
Yeah.
systems. It's a much smaller, more simple system. The soundboard that's up there now wouldn't be used for any of these.
So is there professional people that come make an assessment of what we have and what our needs are? Or do we just-
Daktronics.
I mean, we just automatically say we need all brand new stuff, or,
No, Daktronics came and looked at, the speakers were blown.
okay,
So we'll have to replace them with something.
okay.
Yeah, they're not working.
Are they at the end, did something happen to them? Because what I don't want to do is, if there was something. that-
No, it's been the same thing. There's been the thought, and we've talked to the people who installed it, that maybe the soundboard was too powerful for the speakers, that the speakers had just reached their end of their life. But we also know that we've had trouble when the referee's whistle was shrill, that it might have had an effect on the current speakers. Too much, I mean, I don't even know how to explain it, went through the speakers, but they're gone. I mean, but it's the same thing that happened twice.
So what happened twice? So what?
They've been blown twice. Since, when I got here, they weren't working, we fixed them, and now they're not working again.
So how does the new system prevent or avoid, do we know yet if that can avoid the same type of damage, with the whistle? And
Yeah, well, we'll check into that. When we talk to the people over there, I mean, I'm not gonna make up an answer here, but they said it can handle it. I mean, I don't know how it can handle it, but one of the ADs we talked to says they don't even use the whistle, or they don't let the referee pack as part of their program. And I don't think it's for fear of blowing the system. It's just something they don't do.
So it's something we gotta look into.
Yeah. That was from was that Oak Park? So.
Any other questions for Lauren? If not, we'll move into Tanya's presentation.
All right, first on the list, we were notified that we are going to be receiving $15,735 as part of the American Rescue Plan for homeless children and youth. We have that available for, I believe it's the next 2 years. And on the second page of my report, it shows some allowable uses for that funding. I'm currently working with our administrators, our counselors, social workers, school psychologists to determine how best to use those funds for our students. It is funding that's geared specifically towards homeless children and youth. And when you think about homelessness, you often think about folks living out on the street. Well, in this case, there's a federal definition that families can be living doubled up with other family members, and that is what most of our cases are here in the district. We have multiple families in one home. Some of our high school kids, you typically call them couch surfers. Maybe they don't live at home for a variety of reasons, but they go from house to house sleeping on couches. So we do have some of those situations, but I am working with our staff on how to best use those funds for our students. All right. You probably saw the Facebook post that we have received some star recognition awards. We have received the Commissioner's Award, Post-Secondary Effectiveness Copper, Prepared for High School Graduation Copper, and Graduation Copper. The award certificates are in your packet, but I did put at your place the description of those awards and what they mean. Some of these are figured at a higher level and are not just posted for us to see a level. So for example, the Commissioner's Award, I don't have a number to give to you where we exactly fall. but we received the Commissioner's Award, so that is between 0.4 and 0.99 standard deviations in post-secondary effectiveness factors. High school graduation, we received copper, so we must be between the state average and 89.9%. That is one of the areas I feel concerned about. We have been higher than that in the past, and probably due to the pandemic, but a lot of other factors, we're seeing more students drop out. And so that is one reason that Mr. Feldkamp had mentioned in his report, talking about alternative programs for those students who maybe just don't quite fit into a typical high school setting. All right, and then next on my report, number 3, you will see some MAP data. Now you saw some data for the middle school. This is one of those reports. There are numerous reports. Most of what we look at district-wide would be a very global report. So large groups, the whole district, whole schools, whereas down at the building level and the classroom level and the teacher level, they drill down. So the reports that you're looking at here in this report would be the MAP Fall Student Growth Summary Report. So what that compares is fall of last year to fall of this year. It shows aggregate norm compared to the norms for similar schools. So this is a nationally normed reference test. MAP is given across the nation. So we are being compared with other similar schools across the nation. Now it can be used for instruction, but the particular report that you see there is not one that our folks would use for instruction. It's what the middle school has showed you in their report, where it showed student names and where you could click and look specifically on what those students needed. So those would be the reports that we'll use to inform our instruction. There's also a document, the report reference in there, that helps explain what each individual section means. I highlighted a few areas, the number of students who met their growth projection, which the middle school talked about tonight, and the percentages. So you can look through and see there's the math test, which mostly starts at 2nd grade, 2nd through 5th at the elementary level. And then language arts, language usage, which would be more of your grammar. And then the reading test and where folks fall on that. You will not see high school on this because we did not give MAP at the high school last year. This year's our first year, so we could not compare fall of last year to fall of this year. You will see 9th grade in some reports because they took it last year as 8th graders. You will see high school starting next year, so you'll get to see the growth from high school of this fall, from fall of 2021 to fall of 2022. Or you can adjust it and look at winter to winter, fall to winter, winter to spring. You know, we can look at it in a number of different ways. Our middle school was not finished taking their MAP tests, and our elementary was not finished. So what you're seeing is the fall. I did not include winter since they had not wrapped that up yet. We're going to do some professional development for the rest of the school year, especially on those PD days in February and then again in April. Looking at, and the report that the middle school showed is exactly what we're going to be using. So drilling down for specific teachers and students from elementary through high school, looking at what those students need, what they're ready to work on next, what they're lacking. And then we're also going to do not only MAP, but we do give the state interims. MAP and state interims are different tests, but they look at a lot of the same things. So when you give the state interim assessments, which are given 3 times a year, that will show you exactly how your student would perform on specific objectives if they were to take the test that day. So we can take that and drill down and see how our kids scored, where we need to put more focus on in individual classrooms, go down to each individual student. So we'll be looking at a variety of data and pulling that together so that our teachers can better inform their instruction for students.
Were these grade level norms, or you said those are national?
Yes.
Okay. And then if the bar for us is higher than that, then that means we're exceeding the national norm, and then when it's lower, it's interesting that, is it,
If you look at that orange little diamond, that
Yes.
is the projected growth. And then the blue bar would be the observed growth. So if we have gone above that diamond, we're doing well in that area. But if the diamond is above the blue bar, that's where we would have some concerns.
So if we look at language arts reading for 9th grade, and I don't know, what caught my attention was a FAR category. Help me understand what student median conditional growth percentile hitting 26%. Is that like
Okay, which page are you on? And
the
page 4 of 8?
yeah.
language arts reading, okay, in which the observed growth was below what we thought it was going to be, or below what it should have been.
Yeah, it was a -3.
Yes, yes. So that is a concern. They aren't growing as we would have expected them to.
So is this 8th graders last year?
This is comparing the fall of 8th grade last year to fall of 9th grade this year. There's actually a video too that looks at this report and kind of shows you how to read it. And I can send the link to that video. It goes along with the document. That's a guide on how to read this.
Now, we've talked about this before, Tanya. I think, am I correct that the value in this increases over time as you get more information, where you can see trends? And
Yes.
and stuff? Okay.
Yes. And just looking at these reports, I mean, you can see good growth, you can see negative growth. The real value is when you go down to the student level and the skills that the students are lacking and those that they're succeeding in.
Right.
So once we can drill down and figure out why aren't our kids scoring well on this?
Right. So this would be a summary that you could over time see whether or not that approach is effective or not, because you'll see that data then reflected in the summaries here that we're looking at.
Right.
Is that accurate?
And our teachers, for the most part, have not been drilling down to the very specific data. So they'll look at this and go, gosh, I'm working really hard in my classroom. I don't understand why our scores are this way. Well, once we start pulling and looking at those reports that drill down further, then they start to understand and see, oh, this is why. And I've got all these kids that are lacking in this skill in this area, so they can form their intervention groups. Now, the middle school has a different schedule that's very beneficial, where you can group those kids with those needs in different classrooms.
Right. You can't do that at high school.
High school, no. Elementary, that's where we do our interventions. Now, they're in their classroom, but then they have their intervention time. Brave support period is what it's called here. So those kids can be grouped by those skills and go to those different areas to receive assistance on the areas where they're lacking or the skills that they're missing.
What's the first, so they don't get into the reading until 2nd grade, is that right?
The tests are different at each level. For the K through 2, it's very foundational, so they're looking at sounds.
Right.
There's different tests, but as far as reading for information goes, that would be 2nd and above.
Well, because the reason I was asking that was, I think that there's, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there's data out there that shows that if by, 2nd or 3rd grade, if a child is behind in some of these things, the odds are against them getting caught up.
Yes.
So how are we, if MAPS doesn't move back that far, what's the approach to assess that so that you can not overwhelm in later years title services and 504 IEPs?
Yes, it does test, but the The reports that I've pulled for you today don't show that.
Okay.
There are tests that we do with our K through 2 that really drill down to those foundational skills. So it's not like read a paragraph and answer these questions. It's more of the letter sound matching, identifying letters,
Right.
identifying sounds, and those are in a different set. It's like map fluency. This is map growth. So they're very different. They're different programs, different tests.
Are the teachers using map skills?
Middle school was, but MAP has told us that MAP skills is going away. So we didn't spend a whole lot of extra money and time to invest in that this year. Middle school used to use it very heavily, and then our 4th and 5th grade teachers here were using it. But MAP had notified us in, I believe it was July or August, that MAP skills would be phased out. And I don't know what's replacing that or I just haven't heard the direction that they're going yet.
What is map skills?
Well,
It's a prescriptive. I mean, it's more of like, yeah, we looked at your growth, but then if you want to assess kids at you put them in their intervention groups and then you continue to drill and assess, then it will tell them, here are their skills, it prescribes the skills, and then it assesses them on skills.
it also has lessons and practice too in there.
Yes.
So a student can log in and do the lesson and practice within map skills.
Yeah,
as
we
well.
use that quite a bit at middle school. In fact, we had our middle school math teachers come down to the elementary and talk with our 4th and 5th grade teachers about how to use that. But I just haven't put much more stock into that this year because of the move away from map skills. I assume there's going to be something in its place, or maybe they're rolling things in together. I have not heard. But we do look at a lot more data now than we used to. There are reports beyond this. This is just that high level of growth. But there are also reports that we are using for dyslexia that doesn't diagnose dyslexia. It shows you who's scoring low in certain areas and reading. So then you can help them in different areas. We've identified a lot of those kids, are already being pulled in the middle school for their reading interventions. In the elementary, same thing. They're in those intervention groups. So we're already using the good practices and interventions for those kids, and this year we'll be reporting more on it because of the KSDE initiatives.
Has the district talked at all about setting like a growth goal for the district? So I heard them say they've met, I think it was 60%. Or is there a push towards having like a district-wide growth goal? And so it's not growth meaning 1 point, it's meeting their growth goal. So you're trying to have all of those, because if you're gaining 1 point, that's great, you've gained 1 point, but over a long term, if you're only gaining 1 point, now you're behind.
Yeah.
So
That's part
you
of
have to start meeting those growth goals at some point to be able to either catch up.
That's
or
why I was asking,
to
because I was
keep
like,
going.
if your target is high growth, but you're then just
It
measuring
is hard
growth
for those
overall.
high growth, it is very difficult for those high growth students to progress farther. What a teacher has to do then is start teaching skills above that level. So say they're a 5th grader, they have to start teaching them 6th, 7th, 8th grade skills so they can show even more growth.
Yes.
So they have to go above and beyond that grade level.
We have a growth goal for the district for KISA, but we also have our teachers working with our students to set individual growth goals, and then they have growth goals by the grade level too.
What's our growth goal for KISA?
Oh gosh, I'd have to look it up again. I just plugged that in. I will have to get that to you. I will send out our KISA goals to everyone, so you can see those. And I can hold that too. Other questions?
Well, like over time, will there be a longer range of this over time, like Drew said, so you can see that? I mean, it's new.
Well, it's new for high school. We can go back and look at growth from elementary to middle for several years, but this is the first year we're using it at the high school level.
So at our January meeting then, would we be able to see the growth from fall to winter?
I could do fall to winter, I could do, yeah.
I think fall to winter would be good to see, like so when they enter this year to where they're at now, based on the
Yes.
buildings where
Your
they're at.
high school would not have that though, because high school does fall and spring instead of fall, winter, spring.
Why do they do fall and spring?
You know, that was a recommendation from KSDE and from Greenbush. We pull those students who are really struggling, we pull and do like 6-minute solutions with them and their oral reading fluency, but we don't do the map in the winter also.
I could see not doing it for the height, like that 50 percentile and above, but for any of those students below that.
Yeah, we'll have their ORF, but we won't have the map for winter for high school. And the high school math will be a little bit different next year. This year, it was so new for high school that we tried the math for a particular course. So we wanted to assess how they were doing with Algebra 1 skills, geometry skills, Algebra 2 skills, but that doesn't fit into the growth. So we can't see growth over time because it's just assessing those specific courses. So next year, we're moving them to the map growth for...
My concern with not testing them in the wintertime is if you're using data to drive instruction, it's done in spring. Like,
yes, but we'll have
you didn't use
we'll
any
have the
data.
fall data, and then we'll have our interim state assessment the 3 times. So we'll have those pieces of data to use. Plus, they do
that
their
interim though doesn't give very good data.
Actually, it does. They've come up with new reports
Or
that
maybe in the new report. In the past,
Yeah.
it hasn't been very good.
it's really good now. I'm really impressed. I was never a fan prior to this. It was just kind of another test. But once you get to looking at the data, there's some really beneficial data and some new reports that they've just come out with. So it's a lot better. And it is a lot better too, but high school goes, a lot of their courses are like semester based. So it was hard to, work it like, in
Well, in math
KSD
and
and
reading,
Greenbush.
it's not. I mean, math and reading, you're there for the full year.
Right. But they could be with a totally different teacher, totally different content area. Yeah. It was just a recommendation by
Do we get data back from the ACT test too, based on how our students perform?
We do, not as good as I would like to have. You get really good data back on the pre-ACT, but we hadn't given that because of COVID. So that's when you have to put them all in a room, all your 9th graders. So that one we did not give this year. The ACT test that you take, there's 2 different times when you take that one that they give you back really good data. And some of the data we get, like if they take it with us, we get some good data. But sometimes if you're taking it on a certain date, you do not get that data back, which I think is odd. They just have, I think it's like February and October. Maybe the target dates where they give you back your report and you can analyze it.
Was there something you want to see in January?
Well, I guess it would be nice to see that winter data
Yeah,
for
that's
the,
right. Yep.
and maybe like the growth, to show the growth between fall and winter.
Yes, I need to check dates to make sure we have our winter window closed, to make sure all of our testing is done, but I'll bring that in January if it
Usually
doesn't
it's
work
done
already.
before the end of, before January or middle of January.
Yeah. I'll double check that. If it's not ready in January, I'll bring that in February.
So along with Stephanie asking about goals, I know that I asked the question already, that the MAP scores then correlate with our scores that you see online for our district, right? So
MAP, it does not go online.
Okay, I guess here's the thing. So when you're saying, do we have a goal as a district to hit those individual expectations? Like for me, this is the question that you'll get asked on the street. For people, like if you're looking for houses in different school districts and you pull up the scores and we rank, whatever we rank, like on one of the websites we rank 6th out of 9th in our district. So is the district, do we have a goal as a district to move that up, and what is the goal and how are we doing that? Because that's what, I mean, that's really what impacts the community as a whole.
Well, and some of those sites are,
Which,
they're not.
is that great school site?
Yeah, there's great schools, there's.
No, the one that I looked at was the niche.com.
Oh, yeah. See, those combined, they take your assessment data, but then they also take, like, if people put an online complaint,
Right.
that factors in. So if you have some negative Nellies out there griping about,
Great schools is that way for sure.
yeah, then they factor that into your score and it drops you based on.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, however, okay, so like on,
Exception.
Well, but if you go to the Kansas, the report card, we're in a similar spot in the state, I think, in the
well,
50, in the middle or a little bit
Right.
lower.
so the thing is that, so when I compared, I mean, you compare all the districts, so I compared 9 different districts in our league, and then I compared like another district that I know ranks high, like, so people, well, Sean's gonna laugh at this, so then I just, out of curiosity, I looked at my hometown, right? Well, my hometown school is number 3 in the state, and so then their percentages are high, right? We're like 337th out of 600 and some schools in our state, so then, and our percentages correlate. So, I mean, whether they're right or wrong, they still tell a story of some sort. And the people that are looking up our district, that's what they're seeing. I mean, I know when Hattie was looking at colleges, she looked at that website to compare colleges. So whether it's right or wrong, it's what people look at. And I think that it still, whether that's the right or wrong information, it still goes back to the main question, which is, what are our goals to increase that? Because if we're not, I mean, if we're not, we want our kids to set goals to, have high academic achievement, right? So then we should have
be
that
intentional.
as a district.
Yes.
What?
And that's
We
why
should
we
be
have
intentional.
that's why we have our building goals too, and our building
Yeah.
goals lead into our district goals.
But that's what I was wondering, because I asked Ashley and Casey about how, like, is that how they're trying to increase that? And they said yes. So then that's how I correlated back to MAP, because that's what they said, is that's how they would say that correlation as they increase their MAP scores, they would see that the proficiency in math and reading would also increase in their school, right? So then that's why I was asking if your goals
Technically,
that
if your
you're
MAP
asking
scores are
about.
going up, your students are better equipped to be able to answer the questions for the Kansas State Assessment, which should also be
ACT.
increasing, and
Yes.
ACT and all of those things. So
Right.
MAP is more individualized than those other areas are, and it gives teachers more information. So you would use that to help you progress in those other areas.
Right, but you were asking about goals, so then my
Yep.
question is, so do we as a district have a goal to increase, like, it,
To me, there should be a growth goal. Like, we should have some type of district-wide growth goal that we're looking towards. And I don't think 60% is the right one, but I think we need to have some kind of growth goal that we're trying to determine. And it's not growth by 1 point. It's like you're actually meeting your growth goal.
Yes.
So what percentage of those students are actually meeting their growth goal?
Yes, and I will send out our KISA goals to you. We had to redo KISA goals because they, initially KISA was written, so you would have goal areas like your relevance and your rigor and your relationships, and so we've rewritten those, and I can send those out to you.
what does KISA stand for?
The accreditation. So in order to be an approved school, to graduate students, you have to be accredited by the state of Kansas.
I noticed that there's a kind of pattern here with middle and high school, the 6th through 9th.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of these scores where we're doing, our growth is kind of on the national target, but you get to reading in those 4 grades. Because a lot of them are like, our students are hitting there's a lot of them that are in that 50 to 60% range. But when you get to reading in those grades, it's in the 20 to 40% range.
You know,
So what is, so I'm just curious, like, now, having seen that, then what are the things that happen to start to drill down into that? And maybe what they already presented, but more extra focus on that because it's behind everything else.
Right. One of the things that we've done in our high school is redo our English courses. They're more divided into like intro to literature, advanced literature, intro to writing at the 9th grade level, advanced, right? So every student has more of an opportunity to drill down on those specific skills that they're lacking and they need. So they've divided those courses up to better meet those needs instead of just saying, hey, who wants to be in freshman English and just throw everybody in. So I think that will make a difference in being more intentional toward that individual focus, if that makes sense. I mean, we're trying to make a lot of changes to improve, so time will tell if.
Yeah.
And looking at data more, because it's always just been assumed that we're looking at data and we're seeing that that's not, we give administrators reports, they give the teachers reports, and then we all assume, okay, we all understand what we're looking at and what we're doing, and we have not been as intentional as we should have been in taking them through step by step. What are we looking at? What does this mean? How can we better serve our students?
Right. No, I can't tell you how happy I am that you included this in your report this month. This is exactly what we've been talking about, and to see it here and to understand how it's being utilized I'm just thrilled that we're doing this.
But we have a long way to improve, so we've got a lot
Well, yeah,
of work
but
to do.
it starts with having an accurate picture of where you're at today.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick question. So, did I understand right that you said for the high school, you wouldn't be able to report the ACT scores because they didn't take them, the PAs?
No, that's the freshman that we gave the pre-ACT. That was new a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And we did not give it last year because of pandemic, and KSDE gave us kind of a waiver on that. And this year we were not able to give it just based on some dates and how things fell. But we'd like to go back to that next year. We have the regular ACT, but we don't have that pre-ACT for the past 2 years.
I was just wondering because my son just took the PSAT and got those scores back today. So would that be helpful to look at or not?
That is an optional test. So it would be very good to look at that, but it's one of those tests where if you want to take it, you sign up and take it. So it's not given across the board to everyone. There's good data from it, and those kids who take it, they'll get some good reports back for that, but it just wouldn't be like everybody.
Okay.
It's only those few that sign up.
So the ACT, the pre-ACT, everybody has to take.
We normally gave that to every freshman.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move into the action items. I don't know, 5.1, I think, Alan, you want to cover that real quick?
yeah, I want to hand this out because I upgraded my recommendation from the one that was posted online, just for clarification. And Justin, can you hear me?
Yep.
Did you get my snapshot? I sent it to your email.
I'll have to look. I haven't been on my email.
Okay, yeah, I sent it to your email because I took your recommendation that you sent me and made some clarification on it.
I don't have it, but go ahead. And
Okay.
go through your-
All right, I sent this out to the board last week. It's going to be my recommendation to have USD 464 move to mask optional for all students and staff grades pre-K to 12, beginning on Tuesday, January 4th, 2022. And as I mentioned here, part of my rationale is that all students, those grades, pre-K-12 have the opportunity to be vaccinated if the parents so choose. And so this mask optional would extend to all our visitors and guests to our school district's buildings. But I also have to mention that it's my recommendation to continue with the federal mandate on masking while wearing buses for all students and drivers and those who are transporting our students in school district-owned vehicles. That has not changed at all. And I might be mistaken, maybe somebody knows, but I think that mandate was extended through the end of March. I don't know if anybody saw that in the news. It seems to me it was extended. Same one that everybody deals with at airports and any place else you travel. The other thing I want to make, the recommendation that I changed was I strongly reiterate, this is the third bullet down, that if our total quarantine COVID numbers in any time of the 3 USD buildings reach these levels. So THS is 25 cases, TMS is 20 cases, and TS is 35 cases, and that's based on the 4% number that we instituted last month. So it's the same across all buildings, just for clarification purposes. And, there's a lot of talk about coming out of Christmas vacation. We all know that. So we'll be watching those numbers very closely as we come back into January. Had a lot of conversations with area superintendents, and that's probably the number one topic for those schools. So everything else is the same, but that is, the 4%. We'll watch our numbers closely. As you know, we post our numbers and trends daily, and I think we're being due diligent with the process. So unless you have any questions, that's my recommendation to on January 4th.
And it looked like from the data that, once we went mask optional to high school, we didn't really see any.
No,
the trend is just level.
It's just level. Thank God it is. And then the other thing we're just seeing is no in-school transmissions. That's always something we're looking at. It's from special events that seem to take place.
Our numbers are all family groups.
Yeah, family groups is what we would describe them.
I make a motion to approve action item 5.1.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand.
Aye.
5.1 passes unanimously. 5.2 is the HVAC for the East Gym. I think Aaron already gave us kind of an overview of that. I don't know if there's any other questions, comments, concerns. If not, I would entertain a motion on action item 5.2.
I make a motion to approve action item 5.2.
Is there a second?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? And Justin, I don't know if you want to.
I'm going to abstain. I couldn't hear well enough. I'm going to abstain.
Okay. So we've got 5, 1, and 1. Becky?
Yep, got it.
All right. So motion carried. Policy updates.
Okay, no, so they're in there for people to look at, and the way we've done this the last year, Drew and I kind of work together to look at these. I think it works well that we look at them in advance, share.
Everybody else likes that approach.
It's the fastest approach to get them approved, but I think it's worked. Drew sends me his thoughts on it. We talk back and forth. If anybody else wants to join in on that conversation.
I try to read them, but I don't usually overrule the attorney. So.
Pretty straightforward. I just had a couple questions for you.
Yep.
I'll send to you.
And so what we end up doing is then we'll bring our recommendation back in January for everybody.
All right. Executive session, we do have some items to discuss. Try to be brief. I would move that we adjourn to executive session to discuss non-elected personnel matters to protect the privacy interests of an identified individual for 5 minutes, and it would be the board only. Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor? All right, we're gonna hang up on Justin and we'll call you right back.
Okay.
All right.
I gotta find that. He's like, that was in a text.
Call the session, the board meeting back into session. There's one item out of the executive session. I guess I would ask Lauren to present the recommendation to the board.
It is my recommendation that the Board of Education approve the settlement agreement with William Seymour as submitted and recommended by myself, Lauren Feldkamp, Superintendent of Schools at USD 464.
Is there a motion regarding this recommendation?
I make a motion to approve the settlement agreement with William Seymour.
I'll second that. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Justin, if you'd please acknowledge your vote.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried unanimously. All right. We'll move on to general board discussion, upcoming dates. I think Lauren threw something out, the alternative school. Looking for volunteers on the 23rd. You haven't got back to him. I'm just going to put it out there, a reminder in January, we have to re-vote on officers for the board. So consider who wants to do what next January. I don't know, anybody have any other recommendations for future meetings or dates?
I will throw out some work session possible dates, and then I'll probably stick with that first Wednesday in February as the open house. I think that Wednesdays is going to be our best opportunity.
If not, meeting adjourned.